I think many of us have dreams in us that it's like there's a sense of I've waited way too long for this, or I've been working way too hard and nothing is happening.
Today I'm speaking with a truly inspiring woman by the name of Sarah Davison-Tracy. Sarah is the founder of Seeds of Exchange, and she's also an author, an activist, a philanthropist, and an overall warrior for social justice. Sarah's book, No Longer Untouchable, A Story of Human Trafficking, Heroism, and Hope, reveals the stories of 4 young girls, so-called untouchable young women, who were rescued several years after they were kidnapped from Nepal and trafficked into India's red light district. Not long after this podcast was recorded, Sarah and the 4 young women had the opportunity to meet with Nepal's leader, the Right Honorable President Bhandari, to celebrate the release of their stories in this groundbreaking work. I'll have Sarah back again when the documentary on the subject is released, but in the meantime, please enjoy my conversation with Sarah Davison-Tracy. So, welcome to One Person Acted. Sarah, I'm so happy to see you. It's just joy in my heart every time I see you. So, welcome, Sarah Davison-Tracy, to the podcast.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. This is a treat.
I was trying to think the last time that that we saw one another was a few months ago when you had one of your, I don't know if I should say famous, but well-loved community gatherings at your house. And I brought a girlfriend with me. We are both still talking about it. And it's one of the things I definitely want you to talk about today, because your sense of community and how you bring yourself into the world and bring others with you is part of your secret sauce. It's your magic. So
that was a night.
Well, I can't wait to talk about it. It was a night. Yeah. Very moving talks by a couple of women, and fundraising and food and community and delicious food. So Ethiopian food.
All the good things.
Night. All the good things. That's right. That's right. So we've known each other for, I think now maybe 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Met you at Barnes & Noble. I couldn't remember where I met you, but I was getting to talk about my book, and here you were in the audience, and I still remember seeing your like shining face out there, like, don't know who this is, but she's nodding and making me feel like somebody's actually listening. So,
that was
an auspicious
amazing.
beginning.
Yeah.
It was a fun day.
Yeah, it was.
So this is a big week for you, like a very big week for you. I'll just start by telling people that this book just came out, released on Monday, 7 years in the making, I believe. It's called No Longer Untouchable, A Story of Human Trafficking, Heroism, and Hope. And we're going to get into this book in a lot of detail and how it all began, how it was, how you came to meet the storytellers in the book. But just say a little bit about how the release is going and how the work is going this week.
Oh my gosh. Well, the release is going great. We just found out about 24 hours ago that we hit number 1 on Amazon for new releases of our book, which was exciting.
You're kidding.
Yeah, that was really awesome.
That's awesome. That's huge.
Well, it is huge because this was probably our, how this launch went was probably our 10th iteration of what our plans were on how this would go because of COVID and dates and in-person versus virtual. And it just, what we finally landed on was we're going to launch it, release it into the world. And the only way it's going to make a big splash is if our community helps with this virality of sharing it with people, because we didn't have the opportunity of, a big splash of a gathering. Yeah. And so for me, as you said, it just solidified for me the why of our global community of sisters and brothers and what how we need each other to do just about anything with any impact, any meaning. And yes, it's been a week of celebration and making connections with brand new people. And
Good.
It's been great. It's been great.
Really happy to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about it, but I told you, I love that book. I couldn't put it down. I was afraid to read it. It's on the story of human trafficking, which is one of the most painful subjects and
Yes.
situations that's going on the planet and always has. And yet I just, it was so easy for me to read because of the love and the authenticity and the truth and the hope, ends on hope. So I think when you know a book like that begins and maybe begins rough, but ends with great hope, that helps you pull through it a little bit, even if it's a difficult subject. So
we've kind of joked around with it, but it's like, we keep saying, like, you know, spoiler alert, you know, it does end in hope. And so
that's important.
You know, not all of us like to know the end of the story of a movie or a book or whatever. But when a book is this hard, when the stories, when you're reading about, you know, young girls being trafficked, abducted, coerced, and taken to brothels, to red light districts in India, I don't think it's possible. I could not personally read that story without knowing that this little girl ends up being free, you know, and she is thriving today, and she is. Right. So that's why we just kept saying, like, I'm glad you felt that we kept trying to pull this thread of hope through the whole thing. Like, the light's coming, the light's coming.
And it was throughout. So we'll talk about it a little bit more.
Awesome.
So as you know, this podcast is about individuals who've committed themselves to really tackle one or many problems that seem intractable, that seem embedded in the world, you know, whether it's climate change or trafficking or poverty or just the divisions that we're having in our own country. And so really we want to get to know you as a person who has committed and what has made you become that kind of a world changer, person who's willing to take on those really difficult challenges. You've been on this journey for quite a while, though. This isn't like this week started something new. So I just, we have a lot of different parts of your life that we're going to talk about and your journey, but maybe we can begin with Seeds of Exchange, your organization, and just the whys and the wherefores of that organization and, you know, kind of how it started. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Seeds of Exchange.
Talk a lot about it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. How many days do we have on this?
Open the doors, the floodgates.
I will try to do some bite-sized pieces of the why and the what of Seeds.
Okay.
So Seeds of Exchange is kind of rooted in this belief that when we gather together to make a difference in our neighborhoods or in far-flung parts of the world, our lives, like our individual lives, light up. We feel good. It feels good to make a difference. It feels good to feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself. And it actually, for me, what I fundamentally believe is that it makes our everyday life feel like there's more glitter of meaning and purpose and connection. And so we use these tools of storytelling, of kind of gathering, finding ways to gather community, to be together, to learn from each other, and then really try to find ways to say, hey, try this, donate, come in and learn, hear from this amazing friend of mine and learn this story, or find one thing that you might do in your daily life to be a part of whatever cause we are talking about, be it human trafficking or education or all the things that we love to shine a light on. So it's kind of this weaving together of all of these different parts that have stories, giving, and community tied together.
So is there a central theme? I mean, I know human rights is one of the themes, which if you were to, rather than it being vague, like it, you know, it sounds a little vague because you don't know what you're working on specifically from that description. even though I've experienced it and I know how there's storytelling, and that's how you go through, that's how you bring the community together and how you do the work through storytelling, fundraising, community gathering, and then we'll talk about what you're doing with the book, the efforts that are going out both here and in Nepal and around the world that will be a result of this book and people knowing about it. But if you were to define, or if you were to characterize somehow the Seeds of Exchange, like what is its mission? Because I know you have missions, and I've read your mission statement.
Yeah. So our key at the heart of what we do, it's inspiring people to make a difference locally and globally.
Okay.
And what I love about that is when you gather a community of people, everyone has different destinies. Everyone has different superpowers and ways to make a difference. So it's not like everyone has to be in the human trafficking, looking to make an impact, looking to combat human trafficking. Some people are going to want to focus on, food scarcity, or did we lose each other? Food scarcity, or the environment, or but that's the beautiful thing about community and our unique ways of being called to make a difference, that I love kind of putting a mic up to people and shining a light on all the diverse ways we are here to do that.
Well, and also that is one of the things I love about it, is that it's not just for people, you're trying to help people in a country that's a developing country, or it's not just one area, but you also invite people from who could live next door to you or live down the street from you. I know at your last community gathering, which we'll talk about, what those are for and how and when you do them. But the storytellers were so diverse. There were stories from Afghanistan and stories from Ethiopia, the civil war going on there, people who just experienced those things were there speaking. And then there were people selling jewelry to help other people in other countries for different reasons that they needed help. So it is sort of a hodgepodge, and it does seem like anybody can show up and be part of this, a beautiful hodgepodge. Anybody can show up and be a part of this with their brokenness, with their poverty, with their health issues, whatever it is. It's not like they have to show up and say, I'm here to be the hero. It can be, I'm showing up here at your home or wherever it is, just to kind of feel this, just to be a part of experiencing what love and support feels like. Yeah. Is that true for you? Yeah.
It is so true. And that's why I talk about one of the other kind of themes is everyday or daily life. Because what you're saying is, if that means my everyday moment right now when I show up somewhere is, like you said, being sick or being down or feeling discouraged or feeling alone, we have to be able to be in community and have conversations in the midst of wherever we find ourselves. If we wait for ourselves to feel heroic, I don't know how many of us are ever going to show up ever.
Maybe today, but not tomorrow, So, or maybe this hour and not next hour. So the community really is an idea of providing that, like a cauldron or, a crucible, I guess is a better word, that everyone's just kind of contained together, and one person's strong, one person's weak at that moment. So that's really, it's a beautiful thing. It's an unusual thing. But you do have ties with other organizations, like Threads, for example, was someone who was present at that community meeting. So how do you connect with other organizations like Threads? And maybe if you want to talk about what Threads is, that's great too. But just in general, because I know on your mission statement, you do talk about with governments or with individuals and with other nonprofits. Yeah. So one of the answers that I have for that is, I don't know if you can call to mind one of those dot pictures that you might have had as a kid, where it was like, I love them.
There's a whole bunch of dots, right?
Yeah, I forgot about them, but I loved them.
Yeah. At first, it just looks like a whole bunch of dots, and you don't know really what the picture is. And then as you go along, all of a sudden, it becomes a rainbow or a house or a flower. Right. And for me, that is my picture of this connection piece you're talking about. It's the joy of finding, like, my goodness, look at in this little corner of the world or a topic around human trafficking. How do we connect the dots so that instead of each of these organizations or individuals kind of being on their own little dot all by themselves, how do we connect the dots so we can be inspired by each other? We can learn from each other. We can collaborate and work together and harness our, connect our different communities so that we can spread the word and kind of amplify each other's voices. So that's, for me, my life is kind of this big dot to dot picture, connecting the dots in very practical, tangible ways of how can we do this so that we can really make a difference together.
Right. So give the example of Threads and how you work with them.
Yeah. So like most of the dots that I like to connect with, it generally, I would say 90% of the time starts with a friendship. So Kara and Ange are co-founders of Threads Worldwide. And in fact, Threads Worldwide, the company they started, was birthed out of their own friendship. So it's just, I guess I emphasize that because it is. And it's just, I really think friendship and very like our daily relationships is an important thing to realize that's really where the change is made. Because if we think it has to be something like really epic, connecting with, an organization that we have no personal ties to, or we don't really have a way to find, like, who do we send an email to? How do we connect? It's just starting with who we know and seeing where we can, build from there. So with the co-founders of Threads Worldwide, my dear friends, Kara and Ange, we have been friends, I think, for around the same, like 5-6 years, kind of like us, Deborah. And so in all of those years, we've just been talking about and looking for ways to gather people, to share stories, to share the incredible work that Threads is doing to empower women artisans around the world, to bring women together and celebrate community here in the United States, build sustainable livelihoods for both the folks that are on their sales team here in the US and their artisans around the world. And so we've probably done a dozen gatherings, events together, because we just like working together and we like finding ways to, fuel and support each other's work. So for that event, we started with Threads, and I invited my friend Fatima from Ethiopia and my friend Shakayek from Afghanistan to come and share their stories. And Fatima cooked food. And so it's kind of like we just built the bricks of the event, all based on friendship and how can we create something that's going to really inspire people and give them tangible ways to feel like they're a part of something special.
Well, and it did, because you hear stories from these two lovely women, but then you can also go and this was pre-holiday season, I think it was October or something. So you had all this jewelry from Threads, and so people could buy Christmas gifts or Hanukkah gifts or whatever holiday they celebrate, or buy themselves something, which there's a lot of that going on too. And these were homemade, this is homemade jewelry by women from around the world. And so the money went back to all these different communities, right? So just, it's just like woven, as you said, throughout the entire event is, the celebration of we're in this together, we can help together, it can be tangibly helped, or if you don't have money, you can sit there and listen and be filled up with some of those beautiful, stories and the companionship, really. I mean, honestly, my friend Joan, who came with me, that was something, there was something substantial that happened, not like a typical bunco get together, a bunch of, neighborhood card game. I mean, it was like, whoa, something happened that night. So, is that something that you do, these gatherings? Like, I've been there for the book launch. I've been to a couple of different ones.
Yeah. I mean, how often do we say this? Pre-COVID, I did it a lot.
Right. Back in the old days.
So, it's kind of neat. I mean, looking at when we had that gathering that you and Joan were at, it was kind of in this little bubble of a time where it was safe to gather, and then,
got lucky.
Things kind of shut down. So, whenever I can gather people, as you say, with a purpose, with a sense of how can we create an event that will fill people's cups up and meet them in their whatever is happening in their everyday lives. I love to do that.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I know
yeah.
you love to do it. And in fact, I was going to see if so this book that you wrote, 2018, I think it was, and there's a companion book that goes with it, but this is called
Yeah.
Live Ablaze and Light Up the World. And it's also an incredible book. It's one of the books that you can just pick up and read a page, or have just a moment, like we just shared before we came on, we shared a moment of pause. What do you call it? POP. What is it? What does POP stand
Yeah, a
for?
place of pause.
Place of pause. And
Yeah.
you forget how important that is in life. But this book is chock full of a number of different, just supportive ways to look at things. If you want to help the world, if you want to help yourself, if you want to live ablaze and light up the world, it's just how to live a very robust, rich, meaningful life. And one of the things that I thought of that just now is that you mentioned in there how important it is to have a tribe, and how you really can't do anything of significance without a tribe. Which when I read, pushed back on that, because I'm more the introvert, half extrovert person, and I'm not as much of a community gatherer. I enjoy them, but it is hard for me to believe that you can't make a change alone. I think there are people who have. It's probably not as typical. Would you talk about that a little bit? Because you're pretty strong about it in the book. Like, even speaking to complete introverts, saying, "Yeah, you need a little help." So I don't know. I don't know if I totally agree. So sell me on that idea.
Ooh, I like it. Sell you on it. First of all, I too am an introvert. And definitely, that's why I talk about those places of pause, those pops. I really believe that, for the most part, I and much of the world, as I look around, has way too much activity and
Right.
not enough margin. And so it has been and will continue to be a lifelong journey for me of kind of finding my latest way to think about that is just to live in a deeply spaciousness in my activity level, and then just in my thinking and in my soul. So introverts of the world unite. I'm with you on that.
That's a good line.
And I still, as an introvert, and maybe even more so, the reason that I talk about the importance of having a tribe, a community of people that we journey through life with, again, regardless of introvert or extrovert, is because I just really believe that all of us have seasons where, if we're left to our own ways of navigating it, we will get lost. I think there's certain patterns, vulnerabilities I have in my life where I just, I'm blind to something in myself or in the world. And it takes someone that really knows and loves me to be like, to have a conversation about some of these things that I might miss otherwise.
Yeah.
Or if I find myself really struggling and confused or overwhelmed, to be able to have people that I can be really open and honest with about that kind of raw, I call them like raw and real gritty human moments.
Yeah.
Where maybe they don't fix it. They probably can't.
Yeah.
But just to be witnessed and companioned by someone while I'm kind of not at my best.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think is incredibly nourishing and like it's fuel for me for the journey.
Well, I know in my own life, one way that it really does help me is to give me that push, that nudge out of the warm bed, you're bigger than this. You have more to give than you're giving right now.
Right.
And maybe getting over this current problem you're having will come from you reaching out to the world in a more robust way. So that's for me how a tribe really helps.
That's a great way to say it.
The tribe can be my family, or it can be my next door neighbors or whatever. But it just it's the people around you who are like. But I think you have to open up to let that in too, because you can also put you can also put barriers around yourself to not accept those nudges into the world, or to, let you know what you could do, and where you needed perhaps. So I totally love the idea of the tribe. I totally enjoy it, and I do seek it out. But I do maintain, and I don't think you would argue with this, that there are people who are such introverts that they would flail. They would not enjoy that outwardly grouping, and maybe their thing is just to write a book, and that book, like Rachel Carson or someone who wrote Silent Spring back whenever it was in the 50s, one of the first books on the environment. I mean, I don't know if she was introvert out or extrovert, but you can make change. I think there's room for everybody on the spectrum. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, I think for me, I love what your point is being aware of what it is that helps fuel your unique way of showing up in the world. Yeah. And for some people, it's rarely going to be like the gathering that you're talking about. That'd be overwhelming. That's too many people. It might be just, sitting next to you by your cozy fire that's flickering behind you and having a cup of tea and just talking about, it could be a tribe of a couple people.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like the masses. It's just not
everybody
going
has
it
a
alone.
Way to do that.
Not going it alone.
Yeah. Even if you're living in your car, and that's your home for the time being. Yeah. They also have, those individuals also have a way. I was in a COVID, I don't know what to call it, like on Facebook. It was a Facebook group that my daughter told me about. There's just people in the community who needed help during COVID. And it was just, I could actually, if I really talked about it, I'd get emotional, because it was just like, hey, I'm pregnant. My kids are sick. I don't have food. Literally show a picture of the refrigerator. Can anybody help me out tonight for dinner? Like that hand to mouth. And the people, so I've been to a couple of the houses of people who needed help or people who were giving help. And I'm telling you, they were in the projects. They were not, people sitting in a anything, sometimes they're in a motel, and those were the people giving. So just to say, they were taking and they were giving back and forth. And it's still on there. Can't remember the exact support group name, but if you ever want a boost to humanity, just hop on there and just see the number. Where are you? I can bring you gas. 30 people will show up online and say, did you get it? So it's powerful. And that's a really lovely, example, I think, of how anybody can really help in this time, at any time, not just this time. It kind of spurs us on when we're in a moment like COVID, or not after 9/11 or any of these times. You see people try a little bit more, but it's good to keep it going. That's you. You're keeping it going in all times. So it's a beautiful thing. Okay, so I'm really excited to talk about this book and have you talk about it. There's just so much here, and I don't know where you want to begin. Can you begin how you met? Or maybe I don't know. You can try this any way you like, but the one point that I guess I wanted to open it up with is that the main storyteller, and how did you say Devisara? How do you pronounce her first?
Devisara Hanabadi.
Okay, but do you call her Hana, right? Is that how she goes? Okay.
Or Hannah. Hannah. She basically she goes by whatever name people want to call her. Americans, they see the word Hannah, Hannah. Yeah. And then in Nepal, when people see the Hannah, they call it Hanna. It's just so there's all these. So she is, but her birth name is Devisara Badi, and she is known now by many people around the world by Hannah.
Okay.
So
I'm going to call her Hannah. That sounds like the easiest thing and the most respectful.
Do it.
But one thing you said, I think it might have been on the press release for the book or somewhere that I read, that she wanted she and her sisters and the other girls and women wanted you to tell the story because you're an American, and they're untouchables, which means that people are not listening to what they have to say about their own community, about their own difficult history they've had, and current situation with poverty, human trafficking, etc. This is in Nepal, and we'll set it up. But I thought that was really important because I was kind of curious at the beginning, well, why are you writing their story? And then it made all the sense that in Nepal, the lowest class of untouchable, the lowest caste, and these are the lowest of the lowest caste, the body people, BADI. Nobody would listen to them if they said it. And so they needed that voice. They needed that. When they see that people, an American, wrote a book and they're coming to Nepal to talk about it, then they'll listen. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes, as long as the voices are authentic, And so let's go back to how you met them, how you met Hannah and her sisters, which is not a movie, Hannah and her sisters. I think it is.
I think it is. I never even thought about that.
I didn't think of it till just now either. How did you meet? How did this all begin?
Yes. So it began like so much of our lives do, because I in no way had any intention that I was going to write a book with Hannah and her sisters. I simply said yes to host them when they came through Denver, Colorado, which is where I live. They were then on a film tour, premiering a film crafted by an amazing friend of mine. His name is Grant Nisley, and the film is called Untouchable Children of God.
Wow.
And it is a film about the body people that you just spelled, BADI, the body people, this caste or class in Nepal that is, as you say, Deborah, the lowest of the low in terms of social hierarchy. And they physically are not allowed, they are not free to enter into homes of people that are higher caste than them, which is everyone. So anyway, so they...
Can I interrupt you before this next, just for clarification for the listeners? Because the castes are now illegal in Nepal. I can't remember what year that happened, but just like racism or just like women's rights or just like slavery, it continues for decades. It has that life, like a top that goes on spinning, for many decades. So it is illegal to have a caste system, but the culture doesn't change.
No, the movement for making it illegal started in the mid 1950s. It was officially abolished in 1962 in Nepal. But as you say, it is alive and well in much of Nepal. In fact, Devi Sarahanabadi, our lead storyteller, was just like last week, had to leave the apartment that she was paying rent in, because her landlord found out that she was body and did not want to be drinking from the same water source, didn't want to be using the same stairs to get up to their, they go up the stairs and then one door is to the right and one is to the left. She didn't want to be stepping in the same stairs as Hannah. So
how was that a legal thing that she could force her to leave if it's illegal?
There's no
enforcement of anything
way
like
for
that.
her. So and Hannah loves plants, so she had all these potted plants in her leading up to her place. And her landlord threw them all off, smashed them to smithereens. And Hannah said in that moment she herself felt smashed to smithereens.
It feels very visceral.
Yes. She said, we're just writing a book. It
is
about to come out next week, because this happened last week. It's about to come out, and this is happening. But then she does, and like the invitation is for us as human beings, how do we use that pain, that anger, the hurt, feeling like totally demoralized yet again? And she chose to use it to put that fuel into how do I share this story? How do I live with love? Yeah. And she's going to be okay. She has a roof over her head. And, but I say that because it is illegal, but very significant current reality right now for our sister Hannah.
Yeah. Actually, I'm glad you shared that story.
Yeah. So anyway, so these, this is 12 people ended up needing a place to stay for a week for this film. Their film tour stop here in Denver. So our house had like 6 of them, and then some of the others were like parceled out to neighbors and friends around the city. And I wish I could go into all the detail about that, because that was an amazing time. But what happened, again, because I think so much of what really matters just happens in the context of our daily life, like I just said yes to hosting some strangers from Nepal in our house,
which
and
is
we
not
had
a
dinner
small
together.
thing to do. Yeah, I mean, it's not.
Yeah, we had cooked together and sip tea together, and I tried to do some Bollywood dancing together. I'm not a good dancer. And we went on some road trips to get them to different speaking engagements.
Oh.
And during the course of just sharing our stories, talking about life, they heard that I am a writer. And we had this very, very special, very quick, very deep connection. And on one of our road trips to get to one of their speaking engagements, they asked me, Sarah Didi is sister in Nepali. Sarah Didi, would you write our story? We have been looking and praying for 5 years for someone to be that person. And we think you're the one.
Whoa. That's hard. That's a hard offer to turn down.
Well, in that moment, I had all the reasons to turn it down that you mentioned in the intro. Like, there's someone more educated about caste and about human trafficking and about the country of Nepal, and someone that has their PhD in one of those studies or something, or
it's
someone
somebody
Nepali,
who's more,
or someone who's Nepali. All the reasons, and the way I navigate really big decisions generally is talking to trusted friends, praying a lot, being quiet and listening. And I kind of took a month or so to kind of do those things, and came out of that with this, like, I think I don't totally understand it yet, but what I do sense is that it's a yes. And then I'm going to have to figure out all the stuff I don't understand to make my way into the yes.
Interesting.
So that's it. It just became. But I always joke around. The book started in a very simple, ordinary way of a week-long sleepover in my house, hosting a whole bunch of amazing young folks from Nepal.
So then they took you, once you decided that, yes, you're all in, which speaks a lot to who you are as a person, right? That you're brave. You'll take these leaps of faith that, you'll jump and then the road will appear, kind of a person, right? So how did you go to Nepal? Like, how did that unfold? And what was that like?
So the other part I want to mention is that this community from Nepal came in 2015.
Okay.
And now it's 2022. So that's been 7 years of a journey to make my way. I said yes in 2015, and then 7 years transpired. And so I want to mention that because that's one of the things I love about the story of this book is I think many of us have dreams in us that it's like, there's a sense of, I've waited way too long for this, or I've been working way too hard and nothing is happening, or, maybe I didn't hear the yes. Maybe it was a no, and I'm just, I need to just
fumbling and stumbling and
Yes, and there was a lot of that in the last 7 years. It has not been this like roller coaster of all. There's been a lot of like perplexing and confusing and frustrating and overwhelming moments. But in 2016, the next step was I'm going to go to Nepal. And I'm going to be a part of, I'm going to go to the villages, these Badi villages in the far west of Nepal. They currently, the Badi people, for the most part, they don't own land where their villages are. They've been a community that has been without, they have not been granted citizenship in Nepal. They don't own the land. There's a lot of.
Where do they come from? I did not know they were Nepali.
They have lived in Nepal, but they have not been legally granted citizenship
because
until,
they're Catholic.
yeah, until around 2007, some things started happening that is slowly changing. So we made our way to these villages and had lots of conversations. And for me, it was just about, getting my feet on the ground and getting myself there to be in the space and drinking chai and having food and listening and watching and learning.
And you were alone? You went by yourself?
I went by myself on that trip. But I wasn't alone, because I went, and Hannah was our activist and lead storyteller, was my steady companion, and then a handful of other really amazing folks. And then we began, Hannah assembled the storytellers, 2 of her biological sisters and 2 friends that in Nepal, it's just, everyone is your sister and brother. So she calls them all her sisters, but 2 are her biological sisters, 2 are her friend, sisters. Okay. And all 4 of those young women were trafficked out of Nepal into New Delhi and were enslaved in the red light districts in New Delhi for anywhere from 1 to 13 years. And all of them were rescued or are free.
And these girls, which is why there's hope and why there's heroism, and their rescue, I think it's pretty unusual, that, and I'm not sure that I'm correct in that, but it seems to me that it's a more unusual situation that somebody actually comes for them. Because aren't they often, at least I know some in the book, were actually sold by their own family members, by a cousin, and sometimes they're promised at birth to be. So we're talking about hundreds, or I don't know the number of years exactly, but generations and generations that this has been going on. Right. And how do you, when it's your own cousin or father or mother who sells you, who's going to come for you? So it is, I think, their rescue, and it just feeds into that whole idea that, if you're a slave, or if you've been treated as such a subhuman, with no dignity for so many years, it's hard to find your own dignity. Which is why this is such a great story, because it sounds like the beginning, maybe it's not the beginning, but close to the beginning of restoring that dignity. It seems like that's part of this journey that you're helping.
Yes, and you are right, Deborah. The statistic I have heard is that less than 1% of women and girls ever escape or are rescued from these brothels. So these 4, I just got goosebumps again. These 4, they are heroic. It is miraculous. And to your point, the rescue or escape is one step in the arc of their story to living free and being healed and having dignity, because the whole complex series of systemic cultural realities in their family and their nation, they still have to go back to and live from. So, in fact,
as your story just revealed from last week.
Yes. So,
perfect.
So, yes, it is both a miracle, and the miracle continues as they continue to live free, because there's still all those things that they went back to that they still have to figure out a way to live free within and to thrive within. It's not easy. So
talk a little bit about what is the next steps are going to be, because I know you've got some tools that people can, where people can get involved. And what's Hannah going to be doing? Maybe start by talking about her role a little bit, because she's so strong and she's such an activist and has such high aspirations for herself. So how do you see this going forward with your trip back there and I don't know how you're going to amplify this story in that society, but it'll be really interesting to watch. So what are your next, because you're going, in 3 weeks, I think you said. Yeah.
We leave 3 weeks from today. We will be landing in Kathmandu. So what I love about the answer to that question, we have some ideas and we have big ideas, and I'll speak to those. But I want to start we're also kind of curious, kind of to your point, like, how is this going to go? Who is going to listen? Who's going to loudly oppose what we are looking to share? And so stay tuned. I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah.
But yes, but a couple of our next steps. Number one, I would love to start with your question about start with Hannah, because she, as you say, is fierce. She is, I mean, she was born fierce. The stories in our book that, you know, you catch this glimpse of this young woman that was born in this low caste, impoverished, she was not educated, reality growing up. But she remembers, even as a kid, like she would fight anyone that was looking to shut her up. Like she was born with a voice that was ready.
Born for this vision, with this purpose. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. And so the thing that I want to start with Hannah is she has started an organization called Himalayan Entrepreneur Resources. The acronym is HER, in Nepal. And she is has pulled together. So two of the sisters in our book are on her board of activist women that are leading this organization. And there's 9 of these women that are part of HER. And they are looking, and Hannah's vision is to really go into her people, to other Dalit low caste communities, along with the Badi people, and find ways to really strongly empower women, whether that's vocational training, whether that's micro enterprise loans, whether that's health and hygiene. There's a lot of these women, when they come back from the brothels, when they get too old, if they are sent home or if they do escape, their bodies have been wrecked.
Ravaged.
So she's looking to provide just health care for their bodies so that they can live life. Anyway, so she goes and she asks questions, you know, what do you need? She doesn't assume she knows, even though she's Badi.
Yeah.
She asks questions. How can I be of service? And whatever she hears, she looks to, help with education of the kids. So she is on the ground doing this work right now. She is also going to school, finishing her undergraduate education. She is working.
How old is she now?
26.
Okay.
26.
Yeah.
She was elected by her people as a Badi youth spokesperson to the government of Nepal. Can you imagine? And she is very eye on the prize, climbing to reach her goal of her dream to be Prime Minister of Nepal. She is doing everything she can. Her education is to that end. Her work is to that end. So she is up to some amazing things, and is very good at bringing people around her to get there, and then very good at like being very practical. Like, what do I need to do? So
she's a leader. She's a born leader.
She's a leader. She's a born leader. But then I want to speak to, you were asking, Deborah, about, what are some of the other things we're looking to do?
Right. And maybe what people can do that want to get involved in some way.
So,
like me.
So hope, this thread of hope, was one of the things we wanted to pull through this book. And the other is this very question. We wanted to share these stories and invite people to read these horrifying, kick you in the gut stories, not just to sensationalize or to stay distant and look at this horrifying cultural situation. We really wanted to share these stories so that when people got fired up to say, this is not right, to then follow with a question and our answer, please come and join and do something with us to combat this. So we built a human trafficking toolkit that we have on our Seeds of Exchange website. We'll provide it in the show notes. But we built that with this idea of, when people get fired up and think, oh my gosh, either this is brand new or I've been passionate about this my whole life. We put together, and it's a living, breathing document. So if anyone wants to, tell us about someone that's doing work in the arena of human trafficking, let us know. But we have books and films and things to inspire, quotes, organizations working around the world and in the United States.
Very much so. Very much a problem here. We're talking about a whole other planet, basically, from here, Nepal. And it's right like 3 blocks from here, probably, or next door.
Exactly. So we put this toolkit together with this idea that if something remains too big and we feel like there's no way I can do anything about this, or or that whole what could little old me do to make a difference in the face of
that old yarn
trafficking in Nepal. Exactly. There are things, people, please believe there are things. And if the thing is to read the book, to pass it on, to share the stories. That is a huge thing.
Yeah, have a book club, have a talk. And you'll go and speak at anywhere, pretty much, right? Like you're open to telling this story and seeing what happened there. Yeah,
book
churches,
clubs,
mosques,
schools,
synagogues.
church,
businesses,
faith communities.
Yeah.
And whenever we can, Hannah will be, we've already done 3 of these. Hannah will be coming in from Nepal via the wonders of technology.
Yeah, because that voice is
needed. And she's flying in to be the keynote speaker at an event later this year. So she can also come. So if anyone has ideas of events coming,
what state is she going to be speaking in this year?
Minnesota and in Colorado. She'll be here in Colorado.
Oh, she will. Okay.
We're putting
Maybe
an
we'll have
event
to follow
together.
up with that one. Yeah. Oh, that's
Let's
exciting.
do it. That would be amazing.
That would be great.
And the other thing is go ahead, Deborah.
No, continue. Just
okay. The last thing I want to say is we mentioned this in our toolkit, but one of the other initiatives of Seeds of Exchange is we have the Seeds Giving Fund, and we created that to make giving easy, to make giving be this way that people can be really, really connected and give what they can. So our invitation, we kind of count it like a giving subscription, to be able to give $10, 2 lattes a month is kind of our ask. And you just sign up once, and then as we go, we're partnering all year long in 2022 with human trafficking organizations.
Oh, all right. That's
around
great.
the world and around the United States to be able to really shine a light on what they're doing and support the work that they're doing. And right now we're fundraising on behalf of Hannah's organization in Nepal. So
that's amazing. That's really good to know.
Great thing.
So we will put in the show notes, but just in case for people who just like to hear it and go do something, it's seedsofexchange.org. Is that right?
That's it.
Like exchange, like seeds of EXCHANGE. So you got the word change in there, I see.
Yes.
Seeds of exchange. It's one of your favorite little things. You pull things out of words and...
I do. I love it.
Yeah, I know. I don't think that's going to translate to the audience, but if they read your book, they'll understand. So I just want to touch a little bit more about your influences, because really, again, this show is about, as much as we talked about Hannah and everyone else, what brought you into it? Why do a lot of people have desires to help? I hear it every day. I've been hearing it all my life. I've got, you don't understand, I've got a family, I've got a job, I've got health issues, I've got, people do have, especially now, the most challenging situations. But there's always those people, like I'd mentioned on that COVID help thing on Facebook, that you don't have to be in any certain place. So what was it about you, that allowed people to say, well, she's not, Will you tell me, like, what was it that brought you into it? And at what age were you thinking, I really need to be an active person in the world, like not just observing? Or one quick thing I'll say, another thing I've noticed is that I see people when they read something, it almost feels like they've done something, like they're very concerned about climate change, but then you don't see the action anywhere, or I'm very concerned about animal rights, for example, but there's no change in their behavior. So what is it that makes you or other people act and not just feel like they did something because they became knowledgeable about the situation?
Well, and honestly, that is why we talk in Seeds of Exchange about really inspiring tangible ways to care for each other, and tangible ways to act. And I do believe fundamentally in our core, many, I would argue all people, really, it feels good to care for each other, whether it's a very, like you said, the gas, taking a can of gas to someone who's in need of gas, that imbues your life with meaning.
It
and
actually
so that
does have a physical component to it, like it raises your level of, I forget
it does. And so for me, I think I don't know either, but I know what you're saying. But so for me, that is why in the world of Seeds of Exchange, serotonin.
But it does. It has an exact. It raises it, and I've even seen people talk about, is it selfish to be helpful? Because there is such a rush of joy when you do hand somebody $1. I don't care what you do. People have experienced that. So sorry to do it, but
it's so important. It's so important. And so for me, that's one of the tenets for me is how do I share stories, and then when people feel that like angst of what's happening in Hannah and her sister's lives, to follow it up with like, here's one step. It can be a tiny step, and that's the only step you take. Fine. If 1 million people take that tiny step, that becomes huge. And so I think however we can in our lives kind of talk with people about small, the honoring and valuing small acts with great love, and saying this is plenty. You don't need to do more, because again, if we wait for the more, sometimes we don't even do the one small.
Right, that's right. And it's like an addiction, like a healthy addiction. That once you do it, you don't want to stop, right?
No.
You might hand somebody $1, and then next time you might want to, walk across the street, and they take a little more effort to hand somebody $2. Like it builds on itself, and as you enjoy the benefits of it yourself, it also does help you want to keep going.
Yes. But you were asking about my when did it begin, or young influences. And so for me, I was the kid at a very young age. I had my room like wallpapered with National Geographic photos of communities from around the world. And I always loved to read that. Those were the stories I would love to read. And at that point, it was more like you're saying, I was more devouring stories, but I didn't really have any idea how I could myself engage with them. I was just I was learning. I was a young one, taking it all in. But curiosity about the world and there was a love that was being born in my heart for people in the world, even at a young age. I do see that. And so I had the good fortune and the blessing of being able to go to India for the first time when I was 15. So, my perspective about the world, my body, I'm still growing, like I'm still forming. And so I really believe having this formative experience really helped to put my life in this trajectory that it is now.
Interesting.
Because even then I remember having these moments of being in Calcutta and just being overwhelmed by the differences, the language and the smells and the music and the stories and the press of people. But right next to that, I was also so struck by the commonality, by the ways, especially when I talked with people, talked with mothers and their desire for their children to have food and to have education and to have their dreams come true. The desire of people to be able to make a difference in the world. I remember at 15 talking with people and being like, wow. So we're not all the same by any stretch.
Right.
But in our core, there is a lot that connects us, that is similar. And so I became super passionate, even when I was 15, at coming home and how do I share that story of celebrating the differences and also saying, and look at all of these similarities. And I really was even compelled then, like, how to invite people after I talked about my trip. I remember going to the Rotary and talking to all these old folks back then, right?
25 and 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds.
Yeah, I'm sure they're right.
Yeah.
But then, really having specific things. So I started fundraising even then, for the orphanage where I volunteered.
Yeah, I see.
If you tell a story, how do you share something a way to be able to?
Yeah, because otherwise it's just a story, right?
Yeah.
It's not that there's anything. I think any story is important, even if there's nothing that follows it up, because it changes us and it educates us. But
yes.
Yeah. I would really encourage people to, a couple things that you said that really spoke to me. One is that you were obviously born with this in your heart, it flourished as it traveled and had some opportunities that maybe not everybody has had. But I have seen in my own life, like, people who really never had that calling. They just really don't. And it's nothing good, bad, or indifferent, but it just, I'm trying to take care of my family, and that's my value, and my neighborhood or my own community. Those are their values. But it is interesting that people who have never helped anything, and then they just get this calling at some time in their life. They might be 80 years old. They might be. I remember one time I got my family to donate to make some things for the local shelter, homeless shelter. It was just a little thing like a Christmas. And I will never forget the difference. Like, my father was so excited, like, instead of just, he never did that kind of thing, but you put the structure in, or you give the idea, or you show the way. And, like, he was a different person. He goes down to some wholesale place and he's stacking up, and then he's telling everybody what he did. And, it's because he grew up in a place of real impoverishment and not really learning to do that. So some people just need to be exposed or to feel it, You don't have to think, well, I didn't grow up like Sarah and was struck at the age of 10 or 15. Thank
you.
Yeah.
Yes.
It can happen anytime.
Yes.
Yeah. And be small.
Yes. And I love, though, I do fundamentally believe every person has a gift to give to the world. It's
Absolutely.
not philanthropy and giving is not for the millionaires, and it's not even always about money. It can be about a small act of holding a door open for someone.
Or my next door neighbor who I read to because he's blind, but I get more joy out of it than he does. But I mean, it's like, that's like something that's good for both of us. And there's nothing but time and yourself and your presence. So there's so many ways to give. Whoa. We're getting close to the end of our time. I do want to ask you one thing, because I think it's just a good wrap-up question, maybe. And it's about following your dreams, which is something that many people talk about. But how do you know? Like, some people will say, well, I was just called to start Seeds of Exchange, or I was just called to write this book, or be a nurse, or be an accountant, or whatever. Like, how do you know when you have a dream, do you think? Like, do you have a feeling about that? Like, who's telling you have this dream? Is it for you? Did you have an experience with that?
Yeah. Just one technical thing. Do you want to re-ask that? I got a chime in my ear and I have my phone on Do Not Disturb. I'm really sorry. Did you hear the chime?
No.
Okay, never mind. How do I know I have a dream? Here's one of the other pictures I've had with the answer to that. And I just, in my experience in my life, and as I watch people who are dreamers, but tangibly so, they're actually doing things with their dreams. What I notice in my life and in people's lives around me is that it's just about one step at a time. And for me, I kind of talk about it. Another word picture I have is it being like a treasure hunt, where it's like, today, what do I sense the step towards the dream is today? Even if I don't have the full picture, even if I have a lot of other needs clamoring, kind of what you're saying, if I'm in a season where I have no bandwidth to feel like I can be a difference maker, my kids need things, or my family, my work needs things.
Yeah.
What's the one thing that is calling me, not a should, not a not to, but just out of desire to be able to move towards that dream.
Yeah.
And also the other thing is to have the long view. I mean, we all have seasons where it feels like just the dream is just to survive the day, you know, to make it through this hard season of life. And I think we have to also take the long view and say, you know, sometimes that is the work. And it is to say, I might not look like I'm moving towards my dream, but the seed is there and I'm not going to forget it. But for now, I need to just focus on getting through this day.
That's very helpful, because dreams, sometimes they do have to wait. People say they can't wait. Sometimes they do have to wait, but it doesn't mean you're not cogitating. You're not. And I think the key word you said there, for me anyway, was desire. Like, how do you know if you're supposed to do something? How do you know if you're called, or how do you know if you know, whatever it is, do I want to go to grad school or anything? It's that desire. The same desire keeps coming in from all these different angles. Like, you'll read something and it you know, your mind is searching for evidence, I think, or for answers. And so if it's a desire that doesn't go away, you know, and it just keeps coming back to you, I think that's, for me anyway, I think that was a perfect word to use, was desire, because it's subtle. You know, it's subtle. It's not going to come and knock you on the head and say, do this, you know.
Right.
But that's a great answer. Sarah, this has just been so great. I don't know. I loved hearing about everything you talked about. I would love you to, maybe if you just want to take a minute to talk about how people can, you have the website seedsofexchange.org. But if people, let's say they wanted to be part of your community, or they wanted to learn more, is it all on the website? Is that the best way? You know,
yes, and I will get you all the links for the show notes, but here, the last in a minute, that would be the number one thing. However, to your desire word you just pulled out, whatever you've noticed is piquing your interest in our conversation, I would love to hear what that is. So yes, send me an email, reach out to us through our contact tab on our website. Yeah. If there is an event that you have coming up that I or Hannah and I could come speak at, we would love to do that.
And that's virtual or in person, right?
Virtual, in person, tiny book club, big conference, or you know, big stage, little living room, all big joy for us.
Yeah.
And please consider donating and joining our Seeds Giving Fund, so we can just harness the power of what we can do together to make it something
people can do right now in the next 5 minutes if they really felt compelled to help. And also, we might. Where can they get the book? This
Amazon. Amazon is the best place, and you can also grab it on our website.
Oh, okay, great. All right. Well, congratulations on the early success. It's so important what you're doing. I mean, honestly, it feels so important getting this story out there. And I wish you great success and safety, and
thank you.
A safe journey to Nepal. And when Hannah's here, let's do this again and get a whole conversation going. We can,
that'd be amazing.
All right. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Take
care.
You.
We'll talk soon.
Appreciate you.
All right. Take care. Appreciate you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.